Okay, let's get started. I want to make sure we have enough time to get through all of our many questions and conversations that we want to have today. So my name is Naomi Reinharz. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the American Society of University of Haifa. I'm based in Miami, and I'm so appreciative for our audience joining us today on Zoom and on Facebook Live, really from around the world. Today's program is called Unpacking Tensions with Iran: Is a Larger Confrontation Ahead for the Islamic Republic and the West? This webinar is co-sponsored once again by Rabbi Arthur Weiner and the JCC of Paramus Congregation Beth Tikva in New Jersey. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. We come to you today in quite a significant moment for the Jewish community in Israel, North America, and around the world. Today's webinar comes on the heels of Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, and 7 months already after October 7th, which was the deadliest day in Jewish history since the end of the Holocaust. As the Israeli people are still reeling from the Hamas massacre, and as the Iron Swords War continues, American Jewish students find themselves engulfed in violent anti-Semitic protests on their campuses, not only in the US, but around the world. Today, we once again pledge never again. And fittingly, our guest, Dr. Thamar Eilam Gindin, will provide us with renewed insights on the regime that denies the Holocaust, yet simultaneously vows to repeat it. Thamar, who is a scholar of ancient Persia and modern Iran. She is a research fellow at University of Haifa's Ezri Center for Iran and Persian Gulf Studies. She was previously a member of the Friedman Jewish Manuscript Society's Cairo Geniza Project and a researcher and coordinator for the Medieval Persian Dictionary Project. Head researcher for the Max Planck Society's Isoglasses Project, and a recipient of the Minerva Arches Award for Excellence in Teaching. Today's webinar brings you a timely discussion with Thamar as she shares her perspective on the aftermath of Iran's attack on Israel just a few weeks ago. To refresh your memory, although I don't think I need to, the Islamic Republic fired more than 300 missiles and drones at Israel, and the Jewish state responded with a targeted strike on Iranian military sites. Now the Israeli people and the entire Western world have been waiting with bated breath for the next domino to fall in an increasingly volatile Middle East. Thamar will shed light on why the escalating confrontation between Iran and Israel matters so much to those two countries, to the entire region, and to the international community. She will also help address our greatest curiosity, which is what comes next. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome back the supporters of ASUH and University of Haifa, with the university opening its doors and resuming studies over 4 months ago now on December 31st. It has served as a catalyst for healing between Israel's different ethnic communities against the backdrop of the current war. As Israel's most diverse campus, with 40% of the student body consisting of Muslims, Christians, Druze, and Bedouins, for 50 years, the university has played and will continue playing a central role in ensuring that all sectors of the Israeli population unite to nurture their beautifully diverse civic society. As always, to support us in our mission, please visit asuh.org/donate. And together we can continue to ensure that University of Haifa continues its inspired efforts to heal Israeli society from its darkest hour. Now, 7 months since the horrors of October 7th, University of Haifa also continues to provide support to our brave student soldiers who have been serving and defending our homeland, be it through financial assistance, psychological aid, relief to displaced families from all over the country, and more. This includes streamlined admissions, extra financial aid for IDF reserve soldiers, security personnel, and civilians directly affected by the Hamas war. We very much appreciate your support, especially of our soldiers. So please, once again, you can visit asuh.org/donate. Without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome Thamar to all of our listeners today. We will have a dedicated Q&A section at the end of the webinar, so please start leaving any questions you have for Thamar or for me in the Q&A section if you're joining us on Zoom, or in the comments section if you're tuning in live on Facebook. And again, please leave your name and your location in the chat. We'd love to know who our listeners are, where you're calling in from, and your connection to the university. And lastly, I'll say, I know we always get this question many times. We do record these sessions. We're already recording. We will share this recording in our newsletter, on our website, and on Facebook. You will have access to it for free for eternity, to share with your friends and family and to rewatch. And for any of you who find yourselves in Israel this summer, I know many people travel to Israel over the summer, as will I. please let us know and we can arrange a visit for you at the university. We'd love to have you visit our campus. Okay, so let's get started. Thamar,
Yes.
thanks so much for joining us today. Can you break down from both a short and long-term perspective why Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran have been at odds, and why the hostilities between them have significant implications, not only for the region, but also globally?
Okay, first of all, I'm glad you said the Islamic Republic of Iran and not Iran, because Iran is not an enemy of Israel. Iran and Israel have a common enemy named the Islamic Republic, and more than the Islamic Republic is an enemy of Israel, it is an enemy of Iran. The second thing is that I think both leaderships have very similar interests. They both need a common enemy on the outside to unite their people on the inside. They're both not very successful. But the Islamic Republic, first of all, Israel was one of the Kingdom of Iran's best friends in the region. And when the Islamic Revolution happened, like it happened many times in the past in Iranian history, black became white and white became black. So if Israel was our best friend in the region, now it will be our worst enemy. If the Shah was open to the West, now we will be closed to the West, and we will hate the West and make America the great Satan and Israel the small Satan. So I think that the Islamic Republic is first trying to use Israel as an enemy to scare its own people, to make them rally around the flag. It's a very convenient excuse for arresting people who oppose the government or who spoke against the government. The easiest thing would be to blame them, to accuse them of spying for Israel. So whenever they want the spotlights away from a scandal or something, they will find someone who spied for Israel. And I can say that the same thing is sometimes said in Israel about finding Iranian spies. And another thing is that it's like a smokescreen over the regime's atrocities. While we're thinking, will Israel retaliate? Will the Islamic Republic retaliate? How many missiles? How many drones? And at the end of the two attacks, okay, the first attack on April 1st, there were 7 very high-ranking IRGC officers who became shaheeds, if you ask the regime, or cutlets, if you ask the people. But besides them, there were very few people hurt, a lot of money spent, but very few people hurt in these retaliations. But in the meantime, while we're talking about that, Hengao Human Rights Organization published a report last week saying that in the past 2 weeks, it's those 2 weeks, 63 people were executed in Iranian prisons. While we're talking about other things, well, they announced the death sentence for one rapper, and everyone is concerned with him. 63 people who are not famous were executed. So they need Israel as a common enemy to unite Iranians around the flag, which they don't really succeed. They need it as an accusation to arrest innocent people. They need it as a smokescreen. And they're also trying to control the whole Muslim world because Shiite Iran, the Islamic Republic, who is Shiite, and Saudi Arabia, who is Sunni, each controls their own community. The Islamic Republic is the leader of the Shiites in the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia is the leader of the Sunnis, and they compete for leading the whole Islamic world. And a common enemy would be a good thing to unite around. So that's another thing that they're trying to use Israel to reach their goals.
Yeah, it's very interesting with the smokescreen concept, especially. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, Jordan, and according to some reports, even Saudi Arabia came to Israel's aid on that fateful night and helped shoot down many of the Iranian drones. Is this a sign that Israel isn't as isolated as the country's critics say it is?
First of all, it's not only the country's critics who say we're isolated, because We are. And maybe if it were only up to governments, things would look different, but we also look at the people and we see that Israel is isolated. They don't really care about Hamas using civilians as human shield or about hostages, or it took the UN a few months not only to condemn, but to acknowledge the rapes that were here on October 7th. It really looks like, our worst nightmares are coming true right now. So it was very heartwarming on that night, on the night of the 14th of April, to see that we do have allies, at least among the governments. It was especially heartwarming because the minute the Islamic Republic sent its drones and said it would also send its missiles, they also warned the countries in the region that a country who allows Israel to use its aerospace to defend itself against their attack would be severely punished. And the fact that Saudi Arabia and Jordan came to our aid, I'm not sure if it's true or if it was fake news, because there were a lot of fake news around that, but I read that even the Jordanian princess downed some drones because she's also a pilot. It does show that we do have allies, and the British, the US, of course, and it also shows that the Islamic Republic, instead of making Israel, not only did it fail in making Israel the common enemy of all the Muslim states in the region or in general, the Islamic Republic is the common enemy of Israel and Sunni states. So the important thing is that it's the Israeli American Sunni, the Israeli or Western Sunni alliance. However, we do know that the US is now withholding weapon shipments to Israel because Israel wants to go into Rafah, and the US government opposes this. So I think we should remember that even though we have friends and we have allies, we're still not alone in this world. We can't do whatever we want.
One of the questions already in the chat, which was going to be my follow-up question, is did Jordan shoot down the missiles to help defend Israel or for its own protection because of where Jordan is located? Was it a self-interested move, or were they trying to help Israel in that move?
I'm not sure, because I don't know exactly where it landed. By the way, in that attack, in the Islamic Republic's attack on Israel, there was only one person injured, and that person was Muslim.
Yeah.
I think Jordan, I know that Jordan and the Islamic Republic are not on good terms with each other. Okay? They don't like each other. Iranians don't like Arabs, and Arabs don't like Iranians. Both nations want you to know they're not the same. But I think Jordan was defending Israel more than it was defending itself, unless there were drones that were supposed to fall there, because many of the drones and missiles exploded or fell even inside Iran before even reaching their route. So
Mm-hmm.
it depends on data that I don't have.
Sure. No, I understand. Do you think that Iran's direct attack on Israel, which was unprecedented, rather than using its proxies as the Islamic Republic has done in the past, was that a precursor for a much larger confrontation? I know a lot of people in Israel were, waiting to see what might happen next. Israel obviously retaliated, but it took its time to figure out what type of retaliation would be appropriate without escalating into a much larger conflict. Are we done? Is there going to be further, back and forth? What might Iran do next? What might Israel do next, if anything?
One thing I'm not is a prophet. And both countries are not known to be led by very rational decision makers. So I can't tell. What I think from what we've seen so far, neither the Islamic Republic nor Israel wants this to escalate to a full regional or world war. One of the things we realized on the 14th is that I'll say it, I'll whisper it because I don't want the Islamic Republic to know that we know. The Islamic Republic doesn't have a real interest in annihilating the state of Israel. They have an interest in saying it and in making it their goal. But just like the coming of the Messiah or the hidden Imam, it's something that it's an ideal that we're striving for, but not on our shift, because they need Israel, as I said, as a smokescreen, as a uniting enemy, etc. I think they were not surprised that most of the missiles were intercepted. I think even we were surprised that it was 99%. But and they gave us such a long notice. They first sent the drones. It's a 9-hour notice. Okay, if it was right before Pesach, so I'll give some Pesach, I don't know, metaphor for this. If we wanted, we could have leavened bread during that time. So it wasn't exactly a surprise. They let us prepare for this. And actually, on the first few days, they were trying to sell to their audience, to their supporters inside the country, that the attack was very successful and that a few airports, military airports, were erased. And I don't remember where I heard it, but one of the reports talked about 44 Mossad agents who were killed in one of these airports. They gave images of wreckage from Ukraine and fires from Chile to show the damage that they have done in Israel. But then when the people found out that this was all, well, not a very good show, when people realized that there were no injuries except that Bedouin girl, the Islamic Republic itself, the government said, we didn't mean to hurt anyone because we don't want things to escalate. We just wanted to show them we can, because it was an escalation. It was, as you said, the first time that the Islamic Republic is shooting missiles from the soil of Iran, from within the borders of Iran, and not through one of its proxies. They did need this escalation. They were obliged to escalate because Israel's attack on April 1st was also an escalation, not only because it was 7 people, not only because they were very high-ranking officers in the IRGC, but also because the place where they sat, where they were killed, was diplomatic grounds. Now, I'm not an expert on international law, but most users on social media are not experts on international law. So the common belief is, I checked it, it's not correct, but the common belief is that if it's diplomatic ground, it's Iranian soil. So for all Iranians know, Israel attacked Iranian soil. So this is an escalation, and they needed to retaliate. One very interesting thing is the Islamic Republic doesn't want escalation. Israel doesn't want escalation. I think we've seen this in both attacks. The people who did want escalation, the trending hashtag, one of the trending hashtags on Twitter, right after the Iranian fireworks show on April 14th, was Israel Bezan, Israel hit. Iranian dissidents, opposition from inside Iran and of course from outside Iran, but mostly from inside, wrote Israel hit the Islamic Republic, hit Iran, because these losers who are running our country can't even run our country properly. The economy is the worst possible, and if they also have a war, they won't be able to handle both an internal conflict and an external conflict. So you start a war, we'll take it from here. We'll take it to the streets and take Iran back to the Iranians. There were graffitis in Tehran that said, Israel hit, this is your time to make up for Cyrus's grace, for what Cyrus has done for the Jewish people, Cyrus the Great, who allowed the Jewish people to come back to Israel and build the temple. So now it's your time to return this favor because Iran is our temple. So the Iranian people wanted this escalation. I think they were a little bit disappointed by the counterattack that was it wasn't as Ben-Gvir said Dardale. I'm not sure how it was translated in English-speaking media. It's something like lame-o. Right after the attack, he tweeted
Right.
Dardale.
Right.
So Iranian, the Islamic Republic's, the website that echoed the Islamic Republic's messages also said it was lame-o and we're stronger. And with our attack, we now destroyed Israel's deterrence because now they see that we're not afraid of them and that we do revenge. While the opposition from within and from the outside said Israel does such exact operations, makes such exact operations that even the people in Esfahan and in Qahjavaristan, which is the city closest to that army base that was hit, had a normal day and hardly any disruptions at night, while radar facilities were destroyed by the strike, and the strike was so successful that another missile that was on its way was self-destroyed because they didn't want to do even more damage. So I think every country is trying to show that we won. We now, their deterrence was damaged, and now we're the winners. It's more about dignity and honor than about inflicting damage. Both want to keep their honor and both want to survive. So they don't want to drag the region into a war.
I'm curious when you said, though, that the Islamic Republic doesn't want to destroy Israel. That's surprising to me to hear because, people can say whatever they want or countries can say whatever they want, but it feels believable when they say it. Why do you say that they actually don't want to destroy Israel?
Because the day after, what common enemy do they have to try to unite the Muslim world around? If they destroy Israel, first of all, if it's nuclear, I know it's one of our next questions, but if it's nuclear, the fallout will reach Iran and destroy the whole area. But if they do survive, if they do destroy Israel and survive, which even supporters of the government don't think it's possible. But if they do, they will just fight the Sunnis. There will be other wars. They can't unite the whole Arab world with them. Sunnis and Shiites, or Iranians and Arabs, there will be more wars. Mm-hmm. Secondly, what excuse will they have to arrest innocent people, to arrest people whose only crime was speaking against the government? They will have much less excuses for everything. They need their nemesis,
the common enemy. Yeah. Interesting. I did see the pictures of the graffiti too, that were supportive of Israel, and seeing that graffiti in Tehran was pretty astounding to me and pretty powerful.
Yes. If you want, I prepared a few videos. I can't share audio for some reason, but I can show some videos. Sure. and explain what we see in them about the support of the people of Iran. Let me just see where we are, where I am there. Okay.
There's also been, there's been amazing posts.
This is in this video, what we see. It was a soccer match in October. The regime told the fans to put a flag of Palestine, and well, I hear it, you can't. That all the fans advised the one fan who waved the flag, they advised him where to shove it. I think you can understand where they advise him to shove it, right? I don't need to be more explicit. I have a few from stadiums, but I'll show you some other things. For example, here, in this one you don't need to hear. These are high school students who were forced to shout out Magbar Israel, which means death to Israel. And they refused to shout Magbar Israel, all these high school students. So they were taken to the school grounds and they were made to sit down and stand up for about an hour or until they agreed to shout Magbar Israel. And they just stood up and sat down for over an hour. Another thing here, okay, I wish you could hear this, but the people who are leading the protest are shouting death to Israel. Why isn't it running now? Okay, so it's another one. The people who are leading the protests are shouting death to Israel, and the students are answering death to Palestine. And this one is my favorite. This was the head of the cinema organization of Iran. She resigned after this. She's eulogizing a deceased actor, and she says, we stayed in this country because we love the people and we love the land. And if you only be good to us, and everyone claps and everyone applauds. And then she said, we will even fight Israel and the Zionists. And then everyone boos her. The whole crowd boos, and she can't finish her speech.
Wow.
And it's not, I like this example because it's not political. You know, in stadiums, it's sometimes political. In schools, you can say maybe it's a school in a certain district, but this was really a non-political event. Yes, Iranians, I can't say all Iranians like Israel because it's, 85 million people in the country. We can't say that everybody does. But after October 7th, when things all of a sudden, instead of just researching social media, I could see examples in reality. It's very rare that reality shows me something that's almost opposite social media.
Do you think that any of these groups of people who are standing up and being so brave will lead to something? I mean, you hear the example of the rapper, and you see the repercussions for those who speak in favor of Israel publicly, and it's pretty severe. So what is the likelihood of all these, strong, brave souls in Iran actually making a difference?
We can never know. We can never know. I mean, it will happen eventually. One of the reasons they're not afraid, which was also the reason that the Zan Zindagi Azadi protest, Woman Freedom Life, last year was so long, violent, widespread, and really it was the biggest protests since the revolution. And one of the reasons was that Mahsa Amini, the Kurdish girl who was killed by the hijab patrol, she did not protest. She did not take off her hijab. She did not wave hijab on a stick. She didn't even wear white hijab on a Wednesday, which is a sort of protest that doesn't put you in danger. She just wore her hijab like every other Tehrani woman with half the hair outside. And she was violently arrested. And they realized that even if they're really okay and they behave, they're not safe, which I think is one of the reasons they were much more bold and brave in these protests. And there was also a very heartbreaking rape case on the same weekend of a 16-year-old boy who was raped and killed by his employer, who was not punished, was not even arrested. So people just realized that, it doesn't matter. If I'm okay, I could be killed. If I'm not okay, of course I can be killed, but why does it matter? And my Iranian friends say that when I say, aren't you afraid to talk to me? They say, if they want me, they'll find me. And if they don't find something, they'll just implant it in my computer. Or they'll accuse me of spying for Israel, because that's what they do. But if they don't look for me, they won't find me. I do admit that since the IRGC visited my computer, I cut my connections with Iranians inside Iran to a very minimum in order not to put them in danger, because if they can reach them through my computer, that's a different thing.
Wow, I can only imagine. Some more questions for you before we go to the Q&A from the viewers. A lot of questions about how close Iran or the Islamic Republic is to getting a nuclear weapon, which seems to be the sort of tipping point for a lot of people. I remember Bibi for years, having the sort of hourglass thing with how
The
close
bomb, the
the
bomb
bomb,
drawing, the UN.
exactly. And other people have sort of copied that image, but we've been hearing for years that they're very close. And once Iran gets a nuclear weapon, then is it game over? Does the whole sort of game plan change? Does the balance of power change in the region? What happens, and how close are they actually to getting the bomb?
I'm not sure it's game over, but it is a game changer. And Iran is the Islamic Republic is much closer to nuclear weapon now, thanks to Trump. Because in the 2015 JCPOA, one of the paragraphs said that if one side backs off the agreement, the other side is also free from the agreement. So once Trump returned the sanctions, which means violating the agreement, it means that the Islamic Republic is allowed to enrich uranium. So I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that legally, they are acting according to the JCPOA when they violate it after the other side violated it. I'm not a physicist, so I don't know exactly how far they are, but I know that every new report about every new success and is more and more worrisome for people who do understand how close they are. I think that the attack on April 14th was an escalation, also in the sense that we now know that if they have a nuclear warhead, putting it on a missile that can reach Israel is an option. Of course, the fallout will probably reach Iran. Again, I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I know that nuclear fallout can spread pretty far. Even if it doesn't reach Iran, it will reach their beloved, allegedly beloved, Palestinians and Lebanese and Syrians. So I think they would, if they use it, they would be more cautious, because they know that if they use it, it's their end and maybe the end of the region. So my only concern, my major concern is that they would use it if they see that they're done anyway. Actually, I was most afraid of this possibility during the Zan Zindagi Azadi protests, when I said, oh my God, their end is near. I hope they don't do something stupid to take the whole Middle East with them. It is a game changer because it changes the balance of horror. And now we have it, allegedly. They have it. Pakistan has it. India, everybody's holding a very, very powerful weapon. It is scary because, as I said, the leaders there are not very well known for making rational decisions.
I know you mentioned Trump. There's also criticism of Biden for releasing money to Iran during his term and stopping some of the sanctions that Trump put into place. There's a lot of blame that I've heard from different people for Biden's administration for doing that and for letting Iran sort of stop being bankrupt or broke, and having the funds and the ability to execute the October 7th attack through its proxies and send these rockets and drones. Is that true or not?
The October 7th attack, I think so far there has been no proof that the Islamic Republic knew about it. the first thing the Islamic Republic did, and also Nasrallah in his speeches, were to distance themselves from these attacks. They did say in the Islamic Republic, we kiss the hands and foreheads of the people who planned and executed the attack, but we didn't know about it. Nasrallah also said on his first speech, bravo to the Hamas, they planned and executed it all on their own. We didn't know a thing. I don't think they only did it to commend Hamas, but also to distance themselves from it, because as irrational as they are, I'm not a prophet, so I never say what's going to happen in the future. But since physics has not been able to find parallel universes yet, I am pretty confident when I make assumptions of what would happen in a parallel universe. And I think that if Hamas had let the Islamic Republic know about their plans for October 7th, I think the Islamic Republic might have stopped them because they would know the implications. And that is something that the Islamic Republic doesn't want. In November, when Khamenei met with Hania, and Hania asked for help from the Islamic Republic, Khamenei told him, we gave you all this money and indoctrination and training and education and anything you wanted, and you didn't even let us know that you're doing it. So now you hurt our pride and we won't help you. Of course, we can believe that, because I do believe that pride matters a lot to them. I always say that to all the nuclear talks and peace talks or negotiations, the person I want to see there is a child psychologist. I think that's one of the professions that needs to be sent there. But the fact of the matter is that Khamenei told Hania that they won't help them because they didn't tell them. And another reason for his refusing to help them could be that one of the trending hashtags on Twitter right after the October 7th attack was Manam Bayad Beram, I also have to go. And the meaning was, if the leader says, I will board a plane and go to Gaza to fight shoulder to shoulder with Hamas against Israel. And they had an app where you could volunteer to go. It was during a soccer match, so there was a banner on the bottom of the television that you could see the numbers rise. In like half a minute, they reached 8 million volunteers. 8 million users, not people probably. It was probably bots. And another reason that Khamenei may have refused to help Hania could be that he didn't want to face, to try to make these 8 million people come true when there are probably hardly 8,000.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You mentioned Nasrallah a minute ago. There's some questions in the chat about why Israel, to this point, has not attacked Iran's nuclear sites, as far as we know, given how close, as you said, the Islamic Republic is to getting a bomb, and why Israel has allowed Hezbollah to build its arsenal in Lebanon on the border of where you are in the north of Israel. Why Israel allowed even Gaza to amass the tunnels and rockets that it did? I mean, is Israel being naive or being too forgiving or too patient? I don't know.
Okay, the treaty that was reached with the Hezbollah was that they have to stay north of the Litani River, and when they crossed south of the Litani River, the decision makers decided not to make a fuss out of it. And what we're seeing here is that the security belt, instead of being inside Lebanon, is now half of Israel. And we in Israel also have very severe criticism of exactly the same things. So just like Iran is not the Islamic Republic, I don't think that the Israeli public would have liked everything that the government decided. I'm trying to be very careful in
Diplomatic.
what I say. On social media, I'm a little bit more outspoken. But yes, when Qatar wanted to cut out its support for Hamas, which was $30 million per month for more than a decade, that we know didn't reach the people. It reached the tunnels. It reached the leaders of Hamas who are living like kings in Doha. But when Qatar wanted to cut this aid, it was Netanyahu who convinced them to continue. And we're talking about Iran now, we're not about Israel, so I won't talk about the things, the assumptions and hypotheses going around in Israel as to what were what was his benefit from it or why he did it. What he told the public was that by giving the Hamas a lot of money, we're keeping them quiet and deterred,
Mhm.
which was not what happened.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't want to get too political either. There is a question about whether a potential reelection of Trump versus Biden as US president, how that would affect the situation with Iran and with Israel in the region. I don't know if we want to get into that, but
I think
if
I think Trump has already proven that he can he, he can make troubles in the region. If I I always say that in this conflict, when Israel crossed the line and hit the diplomatic ground, and then the Islamic Republic crossed the line and launched rockets from its own soil, Biden was a very, very effective kindergarten teacher. And I don't think Trump would be as effective in this mitigating role. And when Trump returned the sanctions, when the sanctions were imposed, it hurt the people more than it hurt the government because the government can bypass the sanctions. Of course, it can bypass them now when Russia and China are not even pretending to cooperate with the sanctions. But even when they were, the government can have straw companies in other countries, and I know people who were government employees, and they even told me about conferences they had about exactly this topic. But the people were poor. But when the sanctions were lifted, the people first streamed to the streets to celebrate the lifting of the sanctions. But then after a few years, they streamed to the streets because their economic situation was not improved. But when Trump returned the sanctions, their situation worsened. So it worsened, but it didn't make the people oppose the government more. Economic pressure is not a good lever on the people against the government, because now I hear when this economic situation became really bad, I heard people who before said we have to throw away this regime, saying if we know that our bread and butter is secured, we don't care who's ruling us. And
interesting.
also, they
So
said America cannot be trusted because Trump backed out of the agreement.
so obviously there was regime change at least once in Iran. Do you foresee regime change again? How can we make that happen, in the right direction?
Um, how can we make that happen is a
Encourage it to
very,
happen.
what?
Maybe encourage it to happen. Is it possible? And how can we
Yeah, I think that last year it was the closest it's ever been to regime change. One of the problems is that the Iranian opposition is not strong enough, not united enough. There isn't one person that can sweep everyone like Khomeini did in 1979, in the 1970s. There are leaders, but none of them has enough support. The Iranian people were very happy to see that the world finally understands that the Islamic Republic is an enemy of Iran. I think we all realized that last year, not only me. I always say it, but last year everybody saw it. And they got a lot of courage from reactions, even on social media, even by people on social media that supported their cause. I think that financial involvement or giving training or anything like that is dangerous. It could be a two-edged sword because external support, any external support, decreases the legitimacy of the strife because then the regime can say, "Oh no, Israel is doing this, America is doing this," which they say anyway. They also said it last year in the Zanzindagi Azadi protest, but for the first time, nothing could delegitimize it because it was really from the people and it was a lot of the people. I can't say all because it wasn't 85 million people, but it was so many of the people that nothing could delegitimize it. But external help should, you know, maybe we can help with giving them satellite internet because whenever there are protests or whenever the government is afraid of protests, the first thing it does is block the internet. And also, Parazit, one of my Iranian friends explained it to me. I'm not a physicist, so I don't know how it works, but they like send waves into the air to disrupt reception, which also makes a lot of health problems. And but something that will bypass it, that would allow them internet even when they are when the regime blocks it. That would be something that could really help.
Yeah, interesting. Um, Obviously, a lot of our time and attention right now is on in the US is on university campuses. I know it's also an issue now in other parts of the world, in Canada and Europe. A lot of discussion of Qatar funding, a lot of the Ivy League and other top universities, the curricula, especially, and now going all the way through high school, middle school, down to even kindergarten. You see Qatar's fingerprints on American education. Do you know, is there any evidence of Iran also influencing American schools and colleges, their curriculum, their students, the protests we're seeing now?
Um, I don't know about really influencing curriculum. Um, the Islamic Republic does have a lot of bots and does a lot of influence campaigns online. Last year, during the World Cup in 2022, during the World Cup, there was a hacker group, let's say, with the abilities of a country that broke into one of the leading news outlets in Iran that echoes the regime's messages. And they stole 250 terabytes of data. And one of the leaked documents was about commenting, a commenting campaign in social media and on news outlets to make the soccer players and the protesters think that they should rally around the flag, that most people want them to try to delegitimize the protests. It didn't work, but it was there. And so it's very, very probable. I know that they also do it in Israel. They find the risks and they work on them and they try to post things that would be very extreme to both ends. Usually we can detect it because their Hebrew is very bad, but some people don't. I think it was last week that there was a post that everybody shared, and by its language and by its tone, you could for me, it was obvious that it was an Iranian bot. It was about an Israeli student who won gold medals in the International Math Olympics. It was she did. It was in 2022, but they say that they didn't write about it because she's Haredi. They did write about it a lot. She's not Haredi, but a lot of lies, a lot of inexact information and very bad Hebrew, but people shared it.
Yeah. On that note, questions about the social media and the propaganda that we're seeing so much of now. I mean, I won't even download TikTok. I won't look at TikTok. I know so many young people are now growing up on TikTok. What can Israel do? This is the eternal question on every webinar that we've ever had. What can Israel do to do better in the propaganda war against Iran? A lot of people are asking about Russia and China, of course, too, which is sort of in cahoots with the Islamic Republic. Also tied into that, do you have a sense how many or what percentage of Iranians actually support the regime out of the 85 million versus don't?
I don't know about percentages, but what we saw in the videos I showed and in videos that I didn't show was that when the government, for example, when they had, that's something I didn't show, they had a moment of silence in memory of the Shaheeds of Gaza in October. Then they tried to do it again in April for the Shaheeds of Damascus, in a stadium before a soccer match. The whole crowd whistled, screamed, yelled, booed, honked, anything but a moment of silence. And also what we saw, Magbar Palestine instead of Magbar Israel. We do see also protests in support of the regime that also fill the frame. Sometimes we can tell where the picture is taken from, and it's not from what they say, but sometimes it is. As I said, 85 million people. We can't say something that would be true for all of them. Israel is about 1/10 of that, and we can't say something that's true for all Israelis. But what we did see, also another thing I didn't show you, there was they tried to do a conference named Gaza Mazlume Muqtadar, Gaza, the mighty oppressed. And it was a huge mosque with 2 people here, 2 people there, 3 people there. Really, you could see a lot of carpet in that mosque. So when you see that the regime is trying to organize things and it doesn't succeed, but the opposite does work, and when you know that people who come to show their support of the regime, and in this sense, Palestine is just like saying the Islamic Republic, and Israel is just like saying America, okay? Just like we say that Hamas is a proxy of the Islamic Republic says that Israel is a proxy of America. They don't really distinguish between us. So when you see that people, even when actually expressing support for Israel might put them in danger, they still do it. I'm not talking about Iranians abroad, where you can see that, again, I can't say all because I don't know all, but a very high percentage of Iranian protests abroad are pro-Israel. I don't know if they're pro-Israel more because they're anti-regime or because they're pro-Israel, but what they also say is that they're pro-Israel and anti-Hamas because they know the dangers of Islam. And unfortunately, the people in Europe, the young Gen Zs in Europe and America, don't realize the dangers of Islam, even though it's imminent. It's not the West is next, it's the West is now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And it's scary how quickly it's changing. It feels like much longer since October 7th, the amount of change that we've seen here in this country.
And I can't say how we can win this because they don't listen to reason, they don't listen to debates. So it's impossible to convince someone who won't listen. If you bring facts and they say you're lying, there's
Right.
no talk.
Right.
The only thing would be if in the 1940s there was an Iranian intellectual named Ahmadi Kasravi, and he said the Iranian people must let the mullahs, the Muslim clergy, rule them in order to realize how bad Islam is. So I don't know, maybe they also need to be ruled by Islam to realize that they can't wear tank tops under Islamic regime.
I mean, I'm seeing videos from college campuses not far from where I live where people are being converted. And you see, imams speaking very publicly about looking to convert Americans on college campuses, including American Jews, especially American Jews, as a win for them and for their religion. And you see videos at GW recently where they had massive groups of people in that process. So it's pretty astounding. I know we're coming up at 1 o'clock, so I want to make sure we have time for one last question, which is hard to answer in a few short minutes, I'm sure. But can you give us overall your short and long-term predictions for the future? I know you said you're not a prophet or a physicist, but try to be one for a few minutes.
No,
And tell
I'm
me
not a
what's,
prophet, but I do know the past, and I know what I'm reading. And I'll just finish. It will be very short. It will be a story, okay?
Mhm.
A story. I once gave a lecture in the north of Israel, and at the end, one of the women in the audience came to me and said, in 1978, I was in Iran with my mother, and we stood on the shores of the Caspian Sea, and we looked north to Russia, present-day Azerbaijan and Armenia and Kafkaz and all that. And my mother said to me, do you think we will ever be able to visit there? That was 1978, not so long ago, in Iran, wondering if you could ever visit Azerbaijan or Armenia. So I don't know how it will happen. I know it will happen. I don't know when it will happen. Uh, we analysts always say this protest will also be suppressed and things will go back to order, but we only have to be wrong once. And I want to be wrong that once. And after we're wrong and after it happens, I will be very glad to explain to you exactly what processes led up to this and how it was perfectly predictable.
I will call you when that happens. And we'll have you back for another webinar. But I hope you're right. And that's a really nice way of putting it. You only have to be wrong once for good to happen. So I think that's a nice way to look at it. I want to thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to hopefully meeting you in a few short weeks when I'm at the university for the Board of Governors. I know that our audience was really grateful for you. We, as always, have many questions and comments that we didn't have time for, but if anyone
If
wants
you send it to me, I can answer them on
Sure.
Facebook for your
Thank
next
you.
newsletter.
Perfect. Perfect. So
Send me
anyone
an
who
email,
has,
I'll answer them on the newsletter.
so we will send you those questions. And if you'd like to be in touch with us or with Thamar directly, you can email us at info@asuh.org. Please make sure you're signed up for our newsletters. We have these webinars every couple of weeks or so. We also advertise across social media. Follow us on all social media, not on TikTok, like I said, but across all social media.
Follow me on TikTok. I have some old videos in Persian.
Perfect. Perfect. As I said, please let us know if you're going to be in Israel, you'd like to visit the university. There's still time to sign up for the BOG for those of you who'll be in Israel in early June. I want to thank, of course, again, our co-sponsors for today's program, Rabbi Arthur Weiner and the JCC of Paramus Congregation Beth Tikva in New Jersey. Again, we do record these webinars. We will share the recording in a few short days across social media and in our newsletter. Again, for those of you who want to give back to University of Haifa during this urgent and difficult time, we really appreciate all of your support, especially for our student soldiers serving on the front lines. You can do so at asuh.org/donate. Our supporters are critical partners for us, for the university, for the entire state of Israel. Join us on our next webinar, which you'll hear about shortly in our newsletter. And thank you again to Thamar and for all of our viewers and listeners today. We really appreciate having you with us and sharing some really important insight. And Am Yisrael Chai, as always. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. See you all soon.